The envelope sat on his desk like a coiled snake, white, unmarked, sealed with the kind of precision that suggested deliberate care or calculated malice. Giovanni Moretti stared at it for 3 seconds before reaching across the mahogany surface. His fingers, steady, controlled, broke the seal with a single clean motion. Inside, a single photograph, and beneath it, 7 words written in block letters. "He's not really your son. Ask Elena." The air in his study turned to ice. Giovanni's jaw tightened imperceptibly, the only outward sign of the earthquake happening beneath his skin. He'd built an empire on control, on reading threats before they materialized, on eliminating problems with surgical precision. But this was a knife slipped between his ribs. He pressed the intercom button. "Franco." 30 seconds later. His consigliere appeared in the doorway, silver-threaded hair, eyes like flint, loyalty earned through 2 decades of blood and silence. "Find Elena," Giovanni said quietly. "Bring her to me. Now." Franco didn't ask questions. He never did. But his gaze flickered to the photograph on the desk. A boy, maybe 6 years old, dark-haired and dark-eyed, laughing at the camera. And something tightened in his expression before he disappeared. Giovanni stood, moved to the window overlooking the Manhattan skyline. His son, Marco. The child who'd walked into his life 3 years ago when Elena Rusto, his former associate's widow, had shown up at his door with a boy in tow and desperation in her eyes. "He's yours," she'd said. "From before you and I went our separate ways. Before everything." He'd believed her. Why wouldn't he? The timeline matched. The boy had his eyes, his jawline, his particular brand of stubborn silence when upset. And Giovanni had been, not lonely, exactly, but aware of the emptiness in his perfectly ordered life, the absence of legacy beyond power and territory. So he'd accepted Marco, brought them both into his home, given the boy his name, his protection, his carefully guarded affection. And now some anonymous bastard was telling him it was all a lie. He heard footsteps in the hallway, heels against marble, quick and sharp. Elena appeared in the doorway, still in her silk robe, dark hair loose around her shoulders. Beautiful, in that fragile porcelain way that had once appealed to him before he'd learned beauty could hide serpents. "You wanted to see me?" Her voice carried practiced innocence. Giovanni turned slowly. The photograph held loosely between 2 fingers. "Tell me about Marco?" "What about him?" She smiled, too bright. "He's been asking when you'll take him to the park again. He misses spending time with—" "Tell me who his father is." The color drained from her face. "You are? Giovanni, what is this?" "Don't." The word came out soft, lethal. "Don't lie to me, Elena. Not about this." He held up the photograph. She stared at it for a long moment, and he watched her mind work, calculating, weighing options, deciding whether the truth or continued deception would serve her better. "Where did you get that?" she asked finally. "Answer the question." "I already told you." "Who is Marco's father?" Silence. Then, so quietly, he almost missed it. "Dante." The name landed like a gunshot. Dante Russo, Elena's late husband. The man Giovanni had once trusted enough to call friend before Dante had betrayed him, stolen from him, and died in the resulting war. "He's Dante's son," Giovanni said. Not a question, a confirmation of the betrayal crystallizing in his chest. "Yes." Elena's composure cracked. "But Giovanni, please understand." "Understand what?" His voice remained eerily calm. that you've spent 3 years lying to me, using a child, your own child, as a pawn in whatever game you're playing? It wasn't a game. She stepped forward, hands raised in supplication. I had nothing. Dante's death left me with nothing. His debts, his enemies. Marco was barely 3 years old, and I was terrified someone would come for us. So you came to me? You were powerful, protected. I thought... She swallowed. I thought if you believed Marco was yours, you'd keep us safe. And you did. You gave us a home, security, everything I couldn't provide alone. Giovanni turned away from her, looked out at the city he controlled. 3 years. 3 years of believing the boy sleeping down the hall carried his blood, of teaching Marco to play chess, of feeling something soften in his chest when small arms wrapped around his neck at bedtime, all built on a lie. Who sent the photograph? He asked. I don't know. Elena. I swear I don't know. Panic edged her voice. Maybe someone from Dante's old crew, someone who wants to destabilize you by exposing that I've been played for a fool. He laughed, sharp and mirthless. That the great Giovanni Moretti was deceived by a widow with a pretty face and a convenient story? Giovanni, please. Marco loves you. You love him. Does it really matter whose blood he carries? The question hung between them like smoke. Did it matter? In his world, this world of territories and bloodlines and legacies built on family, yes, it mattered. But the boy upstairs, sleeping in the room Giovanni had decorated himself. Get out, Giovanni said quietly. What? Get out of my home. Pack your things and leave before I do something we'll both regret. You can't. He turned, and whatever she saw in his face made her step back. I can. I will. You have 1 hour. Elena's expression shifted from fear to fury. You're going to throw us out? A child? Your own? He's not mine. You made that very clear. He thinks you're his father. Then you'll have to explain the truth to him. Giovanni moved to his desk, pressed the intercom. Franco, escort Ms. Russo and her son off the property. 1 hour. Make sure they take only what belongs to them. Elena opened her mouth to protest, but Franco appeared in the doorway, his presence making further argument impossible. She left with her dignity in tatters, and Giovanni stood alone in his study as the first light of dawn crept across his desk. He didn't see the figure watching from the hallway. Didn't know that someone else had heard everything. Her name was Sofia, and she'd been invisible for 11 months. That was the truth of working as a housekeeper in Giovanni Moretti's home. You learned to move through rooms like air. Present, but unnoticed. She'd been restocking linens in the upstairs hallway when Elena's raised voice had carried from the study. Had frozen, hands full of towels, when Giovanni's quiet fury had cut through the walls. He's not really your son. Sofia knew she should walk away, should return to the laundry room and forget what she'd overheard. But she'd seen Giovanni with the boy, seen the careful way he taught Marco to read, the rare, genuine smile that crossed his face when the child laughed, and she'd just watched that man's world shatter. She finished putting away the linens with trembling hands, her mind racing. Someone had sent that photograph deliberately. Someone wanted to hurt Giovanni by exposing Elena's lie, but who? And more importantly, why now after 3 years? The questions followed her through her morning routine. Dust the library. Vacuum the second-floor hallway. Try not to think about the way Giovanni's voice had broken on the word, mine. She was cleaning the main floor bathroom when she heard it. Crying. Soft, muffled, coming from the coat closet near the front entrance. Sofia hesitated, then opened the door slowly. Marco sat curled against the wall, his small body shaking with silent sobs. He looked up when light spilled in, and his face, so like his mother's, nothing like Giovanni's now that Sofia really looked, was streaked with tears. "Hey," Sofia said quietly, crouching to his level. "What's wrong, Piccolo?" "My mum said we have to leave." His voice was tiny, broken. She said Papa isn't really my Papa, that we have to go away." Sofia's heart cracked. "Did she say why?" "She was crying. She said she was sorry. She said everything was ruined and it was her fault." Marco wiped his nose on his sleeve. "I don't understand. I don't want to leave. This is my home. Papa is my Papa." "I know, sweetheart. Can you tell him?" Marco looked at her with desperate hope. "Can you tell Papa I want to stay? Maybe if you ask him." "Marco, it's complicated. Please." The word broke her. She shouldn't get involved. This wasn't her place, wasn't her business. She was a housekeeper, invisible, unimportant. But she'd worked in this house long enough to know Giovanni Moretti wasn't the monster people whispered about. She'd seen him leave generous tips for the cleaning staff, seen him thank Franco for his service with genuine respect, seen him build a relationship with a child he'd believed was his own. And she couldn't let that be destroyed without at least trying. "Come on," she said, offering Marco her hand. "Let's go talk to him together." Giovanni was still in his study when the knock came. Soft, hesitant. Not Franco's confident rap, nor Elena's imperious demand for entry. "Come in," he said, without looking up from the papers he wasn't actually reading. The door opened, and he heard small footsteps. Marco. "Papa?" The word was a knife between his ribs. Giovanni looked up. The boy stood in the doorway, holding the hand of someone else. Sofia, he realized, the quiet housekeeper who'd been with them almost a year. Dark hair pulled back, simple clothing, and eyes that held far too much understanding. "Marco," Giovanni said carefully, "you should be with your mother." "I don't want to go." The boy's voice trembled. "Please don't make me go." Sofia squeezed his hand, gently, a gesture of support that made something tighten in Giovanni's chest. "Marco, it's not that simple." "I don't care if you're not my blood, Papa." Tears streamed down Marco's face. "You're the Papa who taught me to play chess, who reads me stories, who makes funny voices for all the characters. That's what matters. Please." Giovanni felt the words like physical blows. "Your mother lied to me," he said quietly. "She used you to, I know." Marco's voice was small but steady. "I heard you talking. She told you I wasn't really yours, but you are. You're my Papa in all the ways that count." The silence stretched unbearably. Then Sofia spoke for the first time, her voice soft but clear. "May I say something, Mr. Moretti?" Giovanni looked at her. Really looked at her, perhaps for the first time since she'd started working here. Mid-20s, careful posture. Hands folded in front of her like she was trying to take up less space. "Your staff," he said. "Not cruel, just factual. This isn't your concern." "You're right." "It's not." She didn't flinch. "But I've worked here long enough to see how you are with Marco. And, if I may, sir, you're punishing the child for his mother's sins. I'm protecting myself from further manipulation." "Are you?" She tilted her head slightly. "Or are you trying to rip off a bandage before it gets ripped off for you?" The observation was too accurate, too perceptive. "What do you know about it?" Giovanni asked, an edge entering his voice. "I know what it's like to lose someone who matters." Sofia's expression remained neutral, but something flickered behind her eyes. My father died when I was 12. My stepfather raised me after that. Wasn't blood, but he was the one who taught me to drive, helped me with homework.
Walked me down the aisle when I got married. You're married? The question came out before he could stop it. Widowed. Simple, factual. Cancer 2 years ago, but that's not the point. She looked down at Marco. The point is that love isn't about biology. It's about choice, about showing up, about the 1,000 small moments that build a relationship. Giovanni stared at her. This quiet woman who'd moved through his house like a ghost for nearly a year was suddenly the most solid thing in the room. Marco, Sofia said gently, can you wait outside for a moment? I need to speak with your father alone. The boy looked between them, then nodded and left. When the door closed, Sofia turned back to Giovanni. I shouldn't be speaking to you like this, she said. I know that. But someone sent you that photograph deliberately.
Someone wanted to destroy what you'd built with Marco. They succeeded. Only if you let them. She took a step closer. Mr. Moretti, I've watched you with that boy. You light up when he walks into a room. You adjust your schedule to have dinner with him. You check on him before bed, even when you have late meetings. All based on a lie. The relationship is real. Her voice was firm now. Elena's motivations were selfish. Her deception was cruel. But Marco didn't choose any of this. He's a child who loves his father. Are you really going to punish him because you're hurt? The word hurt landed hard. Giovanni didn't do hurt, didn't allow vulnerability, didn't permit emotional weaknesses that could be exploited. But this woman had just named exactly what he was feeling, and somehow that made it impossible to hide behind anger. What am I supposed to do? He asked finally. Pretend I didn't learn the truth? No, acknowledge the truth and decide what matters more, pride or family. She said it so simply, like the answer was obvious. Maybe it was. You're very bold, Giovanni said, for someone who could be fired for speaking to me this way. Yes, sir. She met his eyes without fear. But someone needed to say it. He studied her for a long moment. This woman who'd been invisible, who'd just made herself impossibly visible by choosing to speak. What's your full name? He asked. Sofia Castellano. And you've worked here how long? 11 months. Why haven't I noticed you before? She smiled slightly. Because I'm good at my job. Being invisible is part of it. Something shifted in Giovanni's chest, a hairline crack in the walls he'd built. Thank you, Sofia, he said quietly, for speaking up. Of course. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Mr. Moretti, I think you're a good father. Real or not, that boy is lucky to have you. She left before he could respond. Giovanni sat alone with her words echoing in his mind. Pride or family? What matters more? He already knew the answer. The conversation with Elena happened in the foyer. Cold, transactional, everything that mattered said in the spaces between words. You can stay, Giovanni told her, both of you, but only for Marco's sake. Elena's relief was palpable. Thank you. Giovanni, thank you. I'm not finished. His voice cut through her gratitude like glass. You'll have your own wing. We'll maintain appearances publicly, but privately we're done. No more manipulations. No more lies. You're here as Marco's mother, nothing else. She nodded, smart enough not to push her luck. And Elena? Giovanni waited until she looked at him. If you ever use that boy as leverage again, I will destroy you, understood? Understood. She left quickly, and Giovanni found Marco still waiting in the hallway. The boy looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. Am I staying? You're staying. Marco launched himself forward, wrapping his arms around Giovanni's waist with the uncomplicated trust of childhood. I love you, Papa. Giovanni's throat tightened. He placed one hand on the boy's head, the gesture achingly familiar despite everything that had changed. I love you too, he said quietly. It was the truth. Biology didn't change that. Later that night, Giovanni found Sofia in the library. She was dusting shelves with methodical precision, earbuds in, unaware of his presence. He watched her for a moment, the careful way she handled his books, the slight furrow of concentration between her brows. Sofia! She jumped, pulling out her earbuds. Mr. Moretti, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. It's fine. He moved closer. I wanted to thank you for earlier. You already thanked me. Not properly. He studied her face, really seeing her now. You risked your job to speak the truth. That takes courage. Or stupidity. She smiled slightly. I wasn't sure which at the time. Courage, he decided. Definitely courage. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but charged with something unnameable. Can I ask you something? Sofia said finally. Yes. The photograph, do you know who sent it? Not yet. Franco is investigating. But you'll find out. It wasn't a question. Yes. She nodded slowly. What will you do when you find them? Why do you want to know? Because whoever sent it wanted to hurt you. And I... She stopped, seemed to reconsider. I just want to understand. Giovanni took a step closer, watching her carefully. You don't strike me as someone who wants to understand violence. I don't. But I've worked here long enough to know violence is part of your world. She met his eyes. I'm not naive, Mr. Moretti. I know what you are. And yet you spoke up for me today. I spoke up for a child. But her gaze didn't waver. And yes, for you, because the man I've observed for 11 months isn't the monster people whisper about. How do you know I'm not very good at hiding it? Because monsters don't check on sleeping children. Her voice softened.
Monsters don't read bedtime stories with funny voices. Monsters don't hesitate when they're hurt. The observation was too accurate, too close. You're very perceptive, Sofia. Part of being invisible. You notice things when no one notices you. I notice you now. The words hung between them. Sofia's breath caught, just slightly, but Giovanni heard it. I should finish, she started. Have dinner with me? The invitation surprised them both. What? Tomorrow night. Have dinner with me. Giovanni wasn't entirely sure why he was asking, only that he wanted to know more about this woman who'd appeared at the exact moment he'd needed someone to speak truth. Mr. Moretti. Giovanni. Giovanni. She said his name carefully, testing it. I don't think that's appropriate. Why not? Because you're my employer.
Because we live in different worlds. Because it scares you. He saw the truth in her eyes. Not me. The idea of stepping out of invisibility. She stared at him for a long moment. Yes, she admitted finally. That terrifies me. Good. He smiled slightly. Brave people are usually afraid. They just do it anyway. Are you quoting me to myself? If it works. She laughed. Actually laughed. And the sound was warm and unexpected, and Giovanni wanted to hear it again. One dinner, Sofia said. But not here. Somewhere neutral. Agreed. And this doesn't mean... It doesn't mean anything except two people having a conversation over food. Giovanni paused. Unless you want it to mean more. I don't know what I want. Then we'll figure it out together. He left her standing there, and he felt her eyes on his back as he walked away. For the first time in 3 days, something in his chest felt lighter. Franco appeared in Giovanni's study at 11 that night, a folder in his hands. I found who sent the photograph, he said without preamble. Giovanni looked up from his drink. Who? Elena's brother, Antonio Russo. The name brought everything into focus. Antonio, Dante's younger brother, a man with more ambition than sense and a long memory for grudges. He's been working with the Albanians, Franco continued, feeding them information about your operations. The photograph was part of a larger plan, destabilize you internally while they position for a territorial grab. Giovanni's expression went cold. Where is he? We have a location, warehouse in Queens. He's there now. Gather the men. Franco hesitated.
Boss, if you move on him, it'll start a war with the Russos. They'll demand blood for blood. Then let them demand. Giovanni stood, his voice deadly calm. He attacked my family, used a child as a weapon. I won't let that go unpunished. What about Marco? If this escalates, Marco is safe. That's all that matters. Giovanni pulled on his jacket. Antonio wanted to expose the truth? Fine. Now he'll face the consequences. They left through the garage, 3 SUVs full of armed men moving through Manhattan's night streets like sharks through dark water. Sofia watched from a second-floor window, her heart hammering. She shouldn't care what happened next, shouldn't feel this pull toward a man she barely knew. But she'd seen something in Giovanni's eyes tonight. Something beyond the cold control. Humanity.
And now she was terrified he'd lose it in whatever violence was about to unfold. The warehouse smelled of rust and old blood. Antonio Russo stood in the center of the space, surrounded by 6 of his men. Not enough to win a war, but enough to feel brave. When Giovanni entered, Antonio smiled. Moretti, I was wondering when you'd figure it out. You made it easy? Giovanni's voice was eerily calm. The photograph, the Albanian connection, all very sloppy. Sloppy? Antonio laughed. I destroyed you. Everyone will know you've been raising another man's bastard. Your reputation is intact. Giovanni moved closer. Because unlike you, I understand that power isn't about appearances, it's about action. Then act. Antonio spread his arms. You're here for revenge. Take it. Oh, I will. Giovanni's smile was ice. But not by killing you. That would be too clean. He nodded to Franco. Within seconds, Antonio's men were disarmed and on their knees. What are you doing? Antonio's bravado cracked. You wanted to hurt me by exposing a secret. Giovanni circled him slowly. So I'm going to hurt you by exposing yours. He pulled out his phone, pressed play. Antonio's voice filled the warehouse, a recording of him bragging to the Albanians about his plans, about using his nephew as a pawn, about betraying not just Giovanni, but the entire Russo family. The blood drained from Antonio's face. Your family operates on honor, Giovanni said quietly. Loyalty, brotherhood, you violated all of it, so I'm sending this recording to your cousins, to the Russo elders. Let them decide your fate. They'll kill me. Yes. Giovanni's expression held no mercy. They will. But it won't be my hands that do it. It'll be your own people, your own blood, enforcing their code. He turned to leave, then paused. You tried to destroy what I love by using a child. That was your mistake. because now you've learned that I protect what's mine, blood or not, and I don't show mercy to people who threaten family." He left Antonio screaming behind him. Outside, Franco gave him an approving look. "Cold," he said. "Effective." "Necessary," Giovanni corrected. But as they drove back toward Manhattan, he felt the weight of what he'd done. Violence, even justified, left marks. He needed something clean, something human. He needed Sofia's clear-eyed honesty. He found her waiting in his study. She shouldn't have been there. Should have been asleep in her quarters. But she sat in the chair by his desk, hands folded, eyes worried. "You came back," she said quietly. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "I didn't know what to think." She stood. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Did you—" She stopped. "Never mind. I don't want to know." Giovanni moved closer, close enough to see the concern in her expression. "I made sure the person who sent that photograph can't hurt anyone again," he said carefully. "But I didn't kill him. If that matters to you—" "It does." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Maybe it shouldn't, but it does. You're allowed to care about violence even in a violent world. And you? Do you care?" The question was gentle but direct. Giovanni considered lying, maintaining the distance between them, but she'd spoken truth to him. He could do the same. "Yes," he said finally. "I care. More than I should. More than is safe in my position. Then why do it? Because sometimes violence is the only language certain people understand." He touched her cheek lightly, barely a brush of contact. "But I don't want it to be the only language I speak." Sofia leaned into his touch without seeming to realize it. "What do you want?" she asked. "Right now? To have dinner with you tomorrow? To know more about the woman who stood up for a stranger's family?" "Marco isn't a stranger. Neither are you, not anymore." The truth of that settled between them. Sofia searched his face for something, deception, maybe, or danger, and apparently found neither. "One dinner," she agreed softly. "But Giovanni, if this is just—" "It's not." He said it with absolute certainty. "I don't know what this is yet, but it's not casual." She nodded. And he saw something shift in her expression, guard lowering, just slightly. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." They stood there in the quiet study, and for the first time in days, Giovanni felt something other than anger or betrayal. He felt hope. The dinner happened at a small Italian place in Brooklyn, neutral territory as Sofia had requested, far enough from Manhattan that Giovanni's reputation didn't precede him. They sat at a corner table, wine glasses between them, and talked about everything. Sofia told him about growing up in Queens, about losing her father, about the medical debt that had forced her to take multiple jobs just to survive. $43,000, she said quietly. "That's what my husband's cancer treatment cost after insurance. That's what I'm still paying off." Giovanni listened without interrupting. "The housekeeper position," she continued, "it pays better than most, enough that I can make actual progress on the debt. But it means being invisible. It means not having a life outside work. Is that what you want? Invisibility?" "I thought so." She met his eyes. "But maybe I was just afraid of being seen." "And now?" "Now I'm terrified." She smiled slightly, but also curious. Giovanni reached across the table, covered her hand with his. "I won't hurt you," he said. "You might not mean to, but your world, my world is dangerous. I won't lie about that." His grip tightened. "But Sofia, I'm very good at protecting what matters to me, and you matter. You barely know me." "I know enough." He studied her face. I know you're brave. I know you speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. I know you care about people, about children, enough to risk your job. That's not enough to build something on. Then we'll build more. He brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles lightly. One day at a time, one conversation, one dinner. One step into visibility, she said softly. Yes. They stayed until the restaurant closed, talking until words turned to comfortable silence. When Giovanni drove her home, he walked her to her door. Thank you, Sofia said, for tonight. Tomorrow? She hesitated, then nodded. Tomorrow. He kissed her then, soft, careful, full of promise. When he pulled back, she was smiling. Good night, Giovanni. Good night, Sofia. He watched until she was safely inside, then returned to his car. Franco was waiting in the driver's seat. You're smiling, he observed. Am I? First time in 3 days. Franco pulled into traffic. The housekeeper? Sofia. Sofia, Franco corrected. Is this wise? Probably not. But you're doing it anyway. Yes. Franco nodded slowly. She's good for you. I can see it. Giovanni looked out at the city streets passing by. She reminds me that I'm human, he said quietly, that beneath the reputation and the violence, there's still someone capable of feeling. Don't lose that. Franco's voice was serious. It's what separates you from monsters. Giovanni thought about Antonio Russo, about the cold calculation that had sentenced him to death by family justice. And then he thought about Marco's arms around his waist, about Sofia's clear-eyed honesty, about choosing family over pride. I won't, he promised. 3 weeks later, the truth came full circle. Giovanni sat in his study, Marco at his desk working on homework, when Franco entered with another envelope. DNA results, he said quietly. Giovanni had ordered them the day after everything, needed to know the truth beyond Elena's confession. He opened the envelope, scanned the document. Marco was not his biological son. The paper made it official. But as he looked at the boy bent over multiplication tables, tongue sticking out in concentration, Giovanni realized something. It didn't matter, not really. Papa, Marco called without looking up. What's 7 times 8? 56. Thanks. That easy trust, that uncomplicated love. Giovanni folded the DNA results and placed them in his desk drawer. Then he stood, moved to Marco's side. How's it going? Hard, Marco looked up. But I'm getting it. You're smart. You'll figure it out. Like you figured out the bad man who sent that picture? Giovanni went still. What do you know about that? Nothing. Marco shrugged. Just that someone was mean to you, and now they're not mean anymore. The childish simplicity of it made Giovanni's chest ache. Yeah, he said softly. Now they're not mean anymore. Good. Marco returned to his homework. I don't like when people are mean to you. Giovanni placed a hand on the boy's head, the gesture achingly familiar now. I love you, Marco. Love you too, Papa. Blood didn't make family. Choice did. That evening, Sofia joined them for dinner. It had become routine over the past weeks, her presence at the table, her easy conversation with Marco, the way she fit into their strange little family. Elena watched from across the table with thinly veiled resentment. But she didn't speak, didn't challenge. She'd learned her place. After dinner, Giovanni and Sofia walked in the garden. The October air was crisp, carrying the smell of fallen leaves and approaching winter. Marco adores you, Sofia said. The feeling is mutual. And Elena? Tolerates my existence? Sofia smiled. But she's smart enough to know she lost, that you chose him over your pride. I chose family. Giovanni stopped walking, turned to face her. And speaking of family, he pulled a small box from his pocket. Sofia's eyes widened. Giovanni, I'm not proposing, he said quickly. Not yet. But this... He opened the box, revealing a simple gold necklace with a single diamond pendant. This is a promise that I see you, that you're not invisible anymore. Tears welled in her eyes.
You don't have to. I want to. He lifted the necklace, moved behind her to fasten it around her neck. Sofia, you walked into my life at the exact moment I needed someone to speak truth, to remind me what matters. She touched the pendant, her fingers trembling. What happens now? Now we keep building. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, rested his chin on her shoulder. One day, one conversation, one step at a time. What about the danger? Your world will always have shadows. He turned her to face him. But Sofia, you're the light. You and Marco. You're what I'm protecting. What makes all of this worth it? She kissed him then, soft and fierce and full of the same promise he'd just spoken. When they pulled apart, she was smiling through tears. I love you, she whispered.
It was the first time either of them had said it. Giovanni pulled her close, held her like she was the most precious thing he'd ever touched. I love you too. In the house behind them, Marco watched from the window, grinning. And for the first time in months, maybe years, Giovanni Moretti's carefully controlled world felt less like a fortress and more like a home. 2 months later, the story reached its quiet ending. Giovanni stood on his terrace at dawn, Sofia beside him, watching the city wake. I paid off the last of my medical debt yesterday, she said. He looked at her. All of it? All of it. She leaned into him. Between the housekeeper salary and the investment advice your accountant gave me, I finally cleared it. How does it feel? Free. She laughed softly. Terrifying and free. Good. You should be free. And you? She studied his profile. Do you feel free? Giovanni considered the question. His empire was stable, his enemies neutralized, his family, unconventional as it was, safe and whole. Yes, he said finally. For the first time in years I do. Because of Marco? Because of you? Both of you? He wrapped an arm around her waist. You showed me that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about choice, about love that you build instead of inherit. That's very philosophical for someone who terrifies half of Manhattan. I contain multitudes. She laughed, and the sound was warm and real, and everything he'd built this life to protect. So what now? Sofia asked. What does Giovanni Moretti do when he has everything he wants? Keeps it. He kissed her temple. Protects it.
Builds more. More? More family? More light? He paused. More of this. She turned in his arms, understanding in her eyes. Are you... Marry me, he said simply. Not because of duty or appearances or strategy. Marry me because I love you, because you make me human, because I want to build a life with you that's about more than survival. Sofia's breath caught. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Yes. She kissed him, fierce and certain. 1,000 times yes. Behind them, the door opened. Marco appeared, pajama-clad and sleepy-eyed. Are you guys getting married? He asked. How did you... Sofia started. I heard Papa talking to Franco about rings. Marco grinned. So? Are you? Yes, Giovanni said, if that's okay with you. Marco launched himself at them both, wrapping his arms around their legs. That's very okay, he said.
Can I be in the wedding? You'll be the most important person there, Sofia promised. They stood on the terrace as the sun rose, three people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to build something light. A family. Not based on lies or blood or obligation, but on truth, on choice, on love deliberately given. And that, Giovanni knew, was worth more than any empire. Thanks for watching to the end of this story. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel for more stories like this. See you in the next one.